Well, what an absolutely enthralling closeout ceremony thus far. I feel that there is little left for me to say and to do. So I will attempt to be very brief. Let me just start by saying it was our absolute pleasure and delight on behalf of the team to be a participant in this program. I think it has been as enriching for us as I'm sure it has been for you, if I judge from the very, very tremendous feedback. Well, let me just share some thoughts about this closeout ceremony. It is taking place at a time in the world that is beset by difficulty and crisis on multiple fronts. I mean, we have the tremendous loss of life and human pain and suffering from a global pandemic that has raged for over 2 years. We have the ensuing negative social and economic impact of the measures that were necessary to cope with the onslaught of the terrible disease. We have the chilling news that the global carbon dioxide levels are now at a record high, committing the planet to future warming and more extreme weather and longer term negative impact. And that's particularly important for small island states like the ones we live in. We now have the shocking and horrific reality of war returning to Europe after nearly 80 years amidst new geopolitical tensions and even a threat of nuclear Armageddon. But the most critical expression of crisis in the earth is the widespread moral collapse in the heart of man and the widespread ethical collapse in the behavior of man. I think that the current conditions in the earth bear some interesting similarities and parallels to a Bible story that we are familiar with, that most of us will be familiar with. This is the story of Noah. As we know, Noah lived in a time of great crisis in the earth. The Bible tells us that there was a complete moral and ethical breakdown, universal departure from justice, honor, and truth. Violence abounded, and corruption was rampant. From God's perspective, at the core of the crisis was the heart of man, which the Bible describes as fomenting evil continually. This widespread and comprehensive corruption of the human heart constituted an existential threat to all living things, and indeed the very structure of creation itself. In the midst of this rot of the human condition, God found one man who was morally upright, exemplary in his generation, and lived in constant fellowship with God. God would use this man to build a redemptive structure that opened a door to salvation for others and all that was ordained to be gathered into the safety from the crisis by the Lord. In the crisis of Noah's day, we see several patterns that can serve as important markers or guidelines for our response to the challenging circumstances of our time. We see a God who loves the world, but is deeply saddened at the state of his creation. He's as much committed to rescue that which is righteous as he is prepared to judge that which is corrupt. We see the leveraging power of human character, even if in limited supply, having a deciding impact and opening a door to the hope of a better and more sustainable future. We see a strategic response to the advancing crisis that was engineered and enabled by God himself. He chose to build through Noah resilient structures that can withstand the onslaught of the disastrous conditions that were arriving upon the earth. And lastly, we also see a God who was willing to partner with human agents to ensure the integrity of the building effort and to future-proof the built structures in order to secure those prepared to come into the administration of his care. So what are some of the similarities that we can identify in the Noah context and this P.U.S.H project, which we celebrate today? What do we see and what are we seeing? Well, when I thought about it, I was seeing broad-based concern for the state of people negatively impacted by the crisis of their time, and a desire to help rescue such persons from the restrictive grip of their natural circumstances. What else did I see? I saw a group, the Northgate Youth and Family Development Foundation, which is an expression of a global faith-based entity that is committed to human, social, and nations development, advancing its principles such as integrity, humility, leadership through servanthood, excellence, and achievement through sacrifice. What else do we see? Well, we see the design of a strategic response to identified negative conditions and a radical determination to overcome such circumstances by building capacity, creating networks for partnership and support, promoting values and practices that can impact holistic development, and advancing societal change. Most importantly, we also see the involvement and support of what I would refer to as critical enablers, those with influence and those who have the authority to bring about change, people with an authentic desire to make a difference and whose vision, resources, and trust help to make building, change, and transformation possible. It would be remiss of me if I did not offer special commendations to all those who have contributed to the design, funding, support, and execution of this outstanding project. By your support and by your involvement, you have not only facilitated an impactful development initiative, but you have also served as an agent of a desire in the very heart of God himself to provide honorable opportunities to uplift those stuck in the mire of life's circumstances and turbulent conditions. I trust and I pray that you will continue, all of you, to search for and commit to more creditable projects with worthy partners that can help promote sustainable human development and impact social and national transformation. So here's my charge to the project graduates. My word to you, consider the Noah pattern. Consider the Noah pattern. Like Noah, you are now charged with a responsibility to build robust, resilient structures that can not only secure you and your families, but can also impact a wider future order of life. Be diligent in the stewardship of your building responsibilities. Make the most of this amazing opportunity that is now before you. Like Noah, walk at all times in the unimpeachable standards of integrity, honor, and justice, and in the love of all that is good and upright. In so doing, you will be attracting the gaze of heaven and justifying all that God has made available to you through this excellent initiative. Like Noah, live in defiant exception to all that is corrupt and unethical in the surrounding environment. Make a non-negotiable personal covenant to remain right with God. And if you do this, his grace will abound in your life and in all the work that you do. Like Noah, remain steadfast and resolute in the pursuit of the broader mission Do not be overtaken by self-interest or overcome by the opportunity for quick personal enrichment. Just as you were chosen for this privilege, allow your life and whatever influence God gives you to be used to help others step upward out of their own limiting circumstances. Be an enabler for good. Be prepared to give back to your communities. Be on the lookout for ways to make a difference, no matter how small. Finally, like Noah, live comfortably under the demand, expectation, and empowerment that is expected of you, where relevant productivity must be the outcome. There must be a return on all that has been invested. This is very important, and I'd like us to consider just for a quick moment a passage of scripture in Isaiah 5, verses 1 to 2, which provides a picture of God's facilitation of approved human endeavor and his expectation of a productive outcome. I'll just read Isaiah 5, 1 to 2. My loved one had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. He dug it up and cleared it of stones and planted it with the choicest vines. He built a watchtower and in it cut out a winepress as well. Then he looked for a crop of good grapes. My loved one had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. He dug it up, cleared it of stones, planted it with the choicest vines. He built a watchtower and cut out a winepress as well. Then he looked for a crop of good grapes. Here we see the crafting of all the necessary conditions by the Lord to enable success. Deliberate positioning in a fertile space, regardless of what the natural circumstances look like. Careful preparation of an enabling environment. Judicious selection of the very best inputs and resources. Active protection and ongoing facilitative oversight. He built a watchtower to watch, to superintend, to ensure that the processes that he has outlined will come to full maturity, embedding of validated, productive processes. He cut out a winepress and put it right there in the midst. And lastly, he looked for a crop of good grapes, an overriding a divine desire to see and achieve a positive outcome. You have been targeted by the Lord. You graduates of this process have been selected and positioned by him in a fertile place. He has set you in an enabling environment. He has sought out the very best inputs and resources to cause you to prosper and to succeed. He is actively watching over and facilitating your advancement in whatever your area of interest and application. And lastly, his desire is to see you succeed. He's looking for a crop of good grapes. That's his expectation. That is the nature of the grace of God flowing towards you. That's the opportunity that is presenting itself in the midst of the difficult circumstances of our time. And I commend you to the grace of God and the mission of God and the purpose of God. Honor everything that has been invested into you and allow the productivity of the flow of his grace through your life to see you through to the next level of your establishment in business and, more importantly, in him. God bless you and thank you.